What's going on, guys? It's me, Zach, bringing you guys another fantasy football video. In this one, I'm going to go over 5 bold predictions I have for the 2022 NFL season and how those pertain to fantasy. Most of these are obviously not necessarily things that I'm projecting, but things that I think are a lot more likely than you're necessarily giving them credit for. And I think that if any of them do turn out, they have pretty massive implications over how you should approach your fantasy drafts. All 5 of these guys are guys that I'm pretty much finding myself leaving as many drafts as possible with. I love all of them, and I've talked about them in some other videos, but I just sort of want to go a little bit deeper into what I see as their upside and really sort of just plant my flag on these guys and see how accurate I can be, see how many, check back at the end of the year and see how many of these pan out. This will be being recorded August 11th. So we had some preseason games today. Really starting to get into the NFL season. I'm having a blast making all these videos for you guys. If you are new to the channel, thank you for stopping by. Please do, if you find anything useful in the video, give you a subscription, give a like to the video, click the bell for notifications. We put out videos 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And we're going to do that all through the season. We'll have the website up coming here pretty soon. That'll be up before the start of the season. So a lot of big things are coming. Really excited about all of it. And yeah, just having a blast. So thank you guys so much for taking time to check in. Getting really close to that goal of 100 subscribers. I think last time I checked, we were at 96. So we're really blowing it out of the water in terms of getting there by the start of the NFL season. So that's awesome. It's crazy that many of you guys care to hear what I have to say. So that's pretty awesome. Thank you guys very much again. And with that, let's get into the first prediction. First bold prediction I have for this season is that Allen Robinson's going to finish the season as a top 10 fantasy wide receiver. I know that many of you, including myself, probably had Allen Robinson on your fantasy rosters last season, and it was absolutely painful. He burned you every week. You couldn't use him, and he didn't get hurt, so you kept playing him, and it was awful. I think part of that is why his ADP is so low this season. But let me sort of go a little bit deeper into why I think this top 10 projection isn't that outrageous. So prior to getting injured in week 9, Robert Woods was the wide receiver 12 for the Rams last season. So that shows that the Rams offense, despite how dominant Cooper Kupp was being, was more than capable of supporting 2 wide receiver ones. I would make the argument that Allen Robinson is more talented than Robert Woods is at this point in their careers. Robinson's younger. He's been more dominant over the course of his career. He's proven that he can be a 1 even with bad quarterbacks, and that's never really something that Robert Woods has done. So more and more I think that there's no reason to think that just from that alone, Allen Robinson can't perform at a lot higher level than Robert Woods was last season. But on top of that, we're hearing a lot of reports that are training camp that Allen Robinson's going to be a featured wide receiver in the red zone this season. So that gives Allen Robinson a very realistic opportunity to score double-digit touchdowns this season. On top of that, Van Jefferson is entering the season a little banged up. So there's even more target share to go to the top 2 wide receivers in this offense between Kupp and A-Rob. Not to mention, I don't think it's unreasonable to say that Kupp's going to regress a little bit from last season. There's no way he can reproduce what he did last season. That would be absolutely ridiculous. So you're going to see a little bit more target share. I'm getting distributed to the rest of the receivers, and a lot of that's going to go to Allen Robinson. On top of that, the Rams' offense has a legitimate shot to be even better this season. If you don't know, last season was the first season with Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay working together, so there's certainly reason to be optimistic that Stafford's going to be more comfortable with the offense, and they're going to put up even more points. And the other reason is that Allen Robinson has shown before that he can perform at this level. He already has 3 top 10 finishes in his career over the course of 8 years, and he's done that with arguably the best quarterback of his career being Blake Bortles in Jacksonville. Matthew Stafford's a million times better than that. This offense is going to be way better than any offense Allen Robinson has ever been a part of, and he's being drafted for so cheap that, he's got a legitimate shot to finish as a top 10 wide receiver, and, if things break right, he could even finish as the number 1 wide receiver on the Rams. That's no disrespect to Kupp. I certainly expect Kupp to be the number 1 receiver, but a world exists where Allen Robinson finishes ahead of him, and just that possibility alone makes him a steal for me. And I think that Allen Robinson's got the upside that he's more than worth taking the flyer at the fourth or fifth round ADP, and um, I think his floor is actually extremely high. The Rams gave him a 3-year, $50 million contract this offseason, so they don't think he's washed. I don't either. Draft Allen Robinson as much as you can. He's going to be a dominant wide receiver for you this season. Next bold prediction I have here is that Jalen Hurts is going to finish the season as the quarterback one in fantasy. I think he's being currently drafted as the quarterback 6 or 7. So that might sound a little ridiculous, but believe it or not, he was the quarterback one in fantasy last season through week 11. So he's already shown that he can perform at that high of a level for a very large chunk of the season. On top of that, the Eagles added AJ Brown to their offense, so there's clearly a greater availability of pass catchers in Philadelphia than there were last season. Devonta Smith had a really quality rookie season, and there's no reason to think he's not going to be even better in year 2. On top of that, the Eagles face the 4th easiest strength of schedule for quarterbacks this season, meaning that their opponents gave up the 4th most fantasy points to the quarterback position over the course of 2021. So it's a pretty good indicator that the Eagles are going to be pretty capable of moving the ball through the air this season. And Jalen Hurts is one of a few quarterbacks that gives you an outside shot of adding 1,000 yards on the ground. I think between him, Josh Allen, and Trey Lance, those are probably really the only 3 you could say even have a chance at that kind of number. And Jalen Hurts certainly has the ability to get more done through the air than I think Jalen Hurts will. I'm not ranking Jalen Hurts as my quarterback 1. By any means, I do have Josh Allen and Herbert ahead of him, but I do actually have Hurts ranked as my quarterback 3. For that reason, there's so much value added through the ground, especially in standard scoring formats where rushing touchdowns are with 6 points compared to 4 passing touchdowns. So just being able to add that ability on the ground and then projecting a bump up in his passing efficiency and volume really gives him that shot to be that elite. His floor is extremely high because he's at giving you that 50 rushing yard and rushing touchdown floor every single week, and then he's throwing for 200 yards and a touchdown, and then there will be weeks where he connects on a deep ball and it gives you that massive ceiling. The Eagles also ran the ball at the 2nd highest rate in the NFL last year behind the Titans. And adding AJ Brown, oddly enough, from the Titans should only increase the rate at which they're passing the ball. You don't go out there and trade for AJ Brown and not use him. AJ Brown's going to get a ton of targets, and AJ Brown's awesome. So AJ Brown's going to make Jalen Hurts even better. And if Jalen Hurts is going to be better than he was last season, and if he was the quarterback 1 through 11 weeks before he got a bit of an ankle injury, there's no reason to think he can't do that again. Next bold prediction I have here is that Aaron Jones is going to finish the season as a top 5 running back. That's not necessarily a ridiculous prediction, given that there are many analysts that have him ranked inside their top 10. And at the lowest, I think you're seeing him drafted in the late 2nd round as like the RB13. So it's not a huge jump, but it is generally very difficult to crack that top 5. But I think that Aaron Jones is a really realistic opportunity to do that. For starters, there's just a massive target vacancy in Green Bay with the departure of Devontae Adams and Marquez Valdez-Scantling. That makes Aaron Jones the best offensive weapon in Green Bay this season. So he's going to be featured. Obviously, there are plenty of people who are concerned about A.J. Dillon getting a larger role, but since Dillon's entered the league, Aaron Jones actually scores 20% more points in games where A.J. Dillon plays. That's in PPR formats. And the reason I think that jumps out is because you're going to see a lot of scenarios where both of those players are on the field, and that will mean that A.J. Dillon's probably in the backfield, and there will be a larger emphasis on getting the ball at Aaron Jones through the air. And as we all know, targets are a lot more valuable than carries in fantasy, especially in PPR and half PPR formats. So he's going to be a player that I think has a legitimate shot at getting 100 targets, and along with the rushing volume he's going to get, that's just insane upside. Green Bay also has a top 10 easiest strength of schedule for running backs this season, meaning, like I said previously, their opponents gave up fantasy points to the running back position at a top 10 rate in the NFL last season. And we all know Aaron Jones has massive touchdown upside. He's had a season with 16 rushing touchdowns, and he also had 6 receiving touchdowns last year. So we know he can get the ball in the end zone through the air and on the ground. He's going to have a lot of opportunities to do both of those, and I think between him and Dillon, this will be a running back room that probably combines the most total yards and most total touchdowns of any running back room in the NFL this season. And if things break right for him in the touchdown department, Aaron Jones has a very clear shot at being a top 5 running back this season. Next bold prediction I have here is that Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to finish the season as a top 10 wide receiver. This one's arguably the boldest of all 5 of the predictions I have here, but I don't actually think it's that bold when you look a little bit closer. From week 6 on last season, so during the 12-week stretch, Amon-Ra St. Brown was the wide receiver 9 in fantasy. St. Brown was a rookie last season. It's very common for rookies to start slow. So seeing him in the latter 2/3 of the season put up those kinds of numbers, there's no reason for me to really think that he can't continue doing that. Obviously, there is less than stellar quarterback play with Jared Goff there, but Jared Goff has supported a wide receiver 5 overall finish from Cooper Kupp before, and that's sort of the same role that Amon-Ra St. Brown plays in this offense. So it's certainly a role that Goff's comfortable feeding, and he's more than capable of doing so. The coaching staff in Detroit has said very clearly that they plan to manufacture touches for St. Brown, given how well he can perform with the ball in his hands after the catch. I think that gives him a legitimate shot to get 10 targets per game this season. The Lions are going to be down early and often, so they're going to have a lot of passing volume over the course of the season. There will be plenty of games where Jared Goff throws the ball 50 times, and you might have games where St. Brown gets 15 of those targets. So it's just massive upside in all those games where the Lions get down early, which is just going to happen often. Their defense isn't going to be ready to compete this season. They're going to give up a lot of points. They're going to have to try and score to match that. They're not going to be able to, but they're going to try. So he's going to be extremely consistent in PPR formats because of the volume he's going to get, and just because there are going to be so many weeks where they're playing from down 21 at the end of the first quarter. They're going to have to throw the ball a ton. You might get a lot of garbage time. Garbage time points count the same amount as any other points. So I think he's got a very realistic opportunity to finish in the top 10 wide receiver position. He might even do so quietly because he's not going to have very many performances that necessarily matter on an NFL level. The last prediction I have here is that Mike Williams is going to lead the NFL in receiving touchdowns. I think this is actually not that bold of a take at all. I think that there's a very realistic shot that Justin Herbert throws for the most touchdowns in the NFL this season. There's a world where he throws for 50. With that division, they're going to be in plenty of shootouts. We know Herbert is one of the 5 best quarterbacks in the NFL. And Mike Williams is their big red zone target. He always has been. They just gave him a 3-year, $60 million contract to prove that. As great as Keenan Allen is, and Keenan Allen will probably be the number 1 target in this offense, he does have a career high of touchdowns of 8. So that's just never been a part of his game in terms of being a dominant NFL or a dominant red zone receiver. Mike Williams already has seasons in his career with 9 and 10 receiving touchdowns. So he's very clearly the guy that they look to go to when they get towards the red zone. So there's no reason for me to see why Mike Williams couldn't break 15 touchdowns this season. Hell, I think 20 is possible. And, the Chargers are a team that they go for it on 4th down more than anyone else. They're not going to settle for many field goals. The Chargers will probably lead the NFL in touchdowns scored. Their defense is promising but not great, so they're going to give up plenty of points. They're going to play a lot of really talented opposing offenses, so they're going to be in shootout after shootout, and they've got a head coach that trusts the offense and is willing to go for it on 4th down and extend drives. He's just going to have a lot of volume, a lot of deep shots to Mike Williams. He's going to have plenty of opportunities with one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL to do that, and he's going to be the guy they look to when it becomes time to score. So, again, Mike Williams being drafted in like the 5th round, there's no reason for me to not just smash draft him there. He legitimately has an outside shot of being the wide receiver 1 in fantasy this season, just if the touchdowns break right. Obviously, the concern for him really is just whether or not he stays healthy, but I think if he plays 16 of 17 games, he's going to finish with way easily double-digit touchdowns and maybe even well beyond that. So just draft as much of Mike Williams as you can this season. He's going to be an absolute monster. Thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, check out these other videos here if you haven't. If you want more content, please feel free to follow me on Twitter at RealSteelFFB. I'll be more active on there as the season goes on. Thanks. Catch you later.